Welcome to another deep dive. This time into a story that's all over the news right now, the USAID controversy. We're really getting into the weeds with this one, thanks to all the articles you sent.
It's definitely a lot to unpack.
It really is. I mean, we've got Axios, Al Jazeera, CBN, Fox News, Salon, the New York Times, MSNBC, even some stuff from Italian publications.
Wow, that's quite the range.
Yeah, it's global.
Yeah.
People everywhere are talking about this, and it seems like things are getting kind of heated.
Yeah, I'd say so. It all boils down to this fundamental question, right? What role should the U.S. play in the world, especially when it comes to foreign aid?
Totally. And it's not just hypothetical at this point. I mean, Elon Musk is out there calling USA a criminal organization.
Oh, yeah.
Then you've got former President Trump calling USAID employees radical lunatics.
Right.
And now Secretary of State Marco Rubio is stepping in to take control. Where do we even begin with all this?
Well, before we get lost in the weeds, I think we should start with, the basics. What does USA actually do?
Yeah, good point. Some of these articles mention things like PEPFAR and DOGE.
A lot of jargon getting thrown around.
Exactly. Let's clear that up. USA 101. What is this organization all about?
So USA stands for the United States Agency for International Development. It was started back in 1961 by President Kennedy, and the main goal was, and still is, to manage foreign aid and development assistance.
So this is the part of the U.S. government that helps other countries, like with poverty, hunger, things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Think healthcare, education, all those areas.
So it's not about the military or anything, just helping people in need.
That's it. And they've been doing this for over 6 decades now. Programs in something like over 130 countries.
Wow.
Huge operation, around 10,000 employees, and a budget of about $43 billion.
10,000 employees. That's incredible. But, okay, so if USA is all about helping people, why is there so much controversy? What are these accusations, and who's making them?
Well, there's a lot of criticism coming from different directions, but a lot of it goes back to, I'd say, a few main themes. One of the loudest voices is, as you mentioned, Elon Musk.
He wants them shut down, right?
He does, says it's beyond repair, calls it a criminal organization.
Wow.
He's claiming widespread corruption and waste within the agency. And then, of course, you've got former President Trump, also very critical.
Right, radical lunatics.
Exactly, and suggesting they're pushing a political agenda that goes against American interests.
So we've got accusations of corruption and this radical agenda. What agenda are we even talking about here?
So some of the articles you sent, especially those from conservative sources like CBN and Fox News, focus on USAID funding for DEI.
DEI.
Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion initiatives. There are programs in Serbia and Ireland promoting DEI in workplaces and schools.
And that's where the radical label comes in.
Right. Critics are saying USAID should just focus on basic needs, food and water, not promoting what they consider to be a woke agenda. Interesting.
And some even bring up USAID's involvement in those controversial population control programs from the past, raising concerns about, the agency's whole history.
Wow, so that adds another layer to this. Okay, so we've got Musk and Trump at the forefront, claiming corruption and a radical agenda. But you also mentioned something called DOGE. What is that, and how does it fit into all this?
So DOGE is the Department of Government Efficiency. It's a panel. Former President Trump set it up. The idea was to streamline the federal government, make it more efficient.
I see.
Musk was the head of DOGE, and as part of that, he started investigating USAID.
So this wasn't just Musk tweeting his opinions. He was actually looking into USAID. What was he investigating?
Well, initially, it seemed like he was focused on the same things he'd been talking about publicly, waste and inefficiency.
Yeah.
But then things took a turn when DOGE representatives showed up at USAID headquarters and reportedly asked for access to classified information in internal systems.
Wait, so Musk's team wanted access to classified information?
Now, what happened then?
2 senior USA security officials refused to give it to them, said they were worried about, national security breaches.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and because of that, those officials were put on leave.
Seriously? For refusing to give up classified information?
It sparked outrage from Democrats, and yeah, there's now a lot of concern about the potential for, sensitive information being compromised.
So they put these USAID officials on leave just for doing your jobs, basically.
Yeah.
Wow. What happened after that?
Well, things escalated pretty quickly.
No.
Yeah, shortly after that whole incident at headquarters, the building was completely shut down. Everyone had to work remotely.
And a complete shutdown.
And then their website and social media went dark.
Adding to the chaos.
Oh, yeah, it was a lot. And if that wasn't enough, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced he was taking over, acting director of USAID.
So we go from security officials being put on leave to the whole headquarters shutting down, everything going dark online, and then Rubio steps in.
Yeah.
What was the reason for all this?
Well, Rubio said USAID had become completely unresponsive.
Unresponsive.
Yeah, and that they were being insubordinate, refusing to cooperate with requests for information about their programs and spending. His argument was that they were no longer serving American interests and needed to be, brought under control.
But wasn't USA meant to be independent? To avoid, political influence?
It was. Congress created it to have some autonomy, specifically to prevent political interference in their humanitarian work.
Right.
But the current administration's position is that the president has the power to restructure or even dismantle the agency.
Really?
Yeah, they're saying it's about efficiency and aligning it with policy goals.
So you've got this power struggle going on between Congress and the administration over control of USAID. And in the middle of all this, you have the employees, many of whom have dedicated their whole careers to this humanitarian work. How are they reacting to all of this?
Honestly, I think it's been a mix of confusion, fear, and frustration. A lot of USAID employees are really worried about what these changes will mean for their work, for the people they help around the world.
Yeah, I can
feel like their work is being undermined and their expertise isn't valued.
You mentioned AFSA earlier. Have they said anything about all of this?
Yeah, they have. AFSA, the American Foreign Service Association, they represent U.S. foreign service workers, including a lot of USAID employees. They put out a statement, pretty strong one, actually.
Oh.
They're completely against dismantling USAID. They say it'll hurt America's reputation abroad and actually weaken national security.
So they're saying that getting rid of USAID would be bad for America. How so?
Well, their argument is that USAID helps to build U.S. influence around the world. Soft power, they call it, promoting stability and things like that.
Right.
They believe that if we cut back or eliminate these programs, other countries will step in, maybe countries that don't share U.S. values.
I see.
And that could lead to more instability and conflict.
So USAID isn't just about providing aid. It's also about America's global position, promoting stability, keeping things in check. It makes the idea of downsizing or dismantling it even more impactful. What are the concerns about what might happen if they do go through with it?
I think the most immediate concern is what will happen to all those aid programs around the world. USA is a major provider of, everything. Food, shelter, medical care.
Essential aid.
Yeah, for millions of people. Places where there's conflict, poverty, natural disasters.
Some of those articles mentioned Ukraine, Ethiopia, Jordan, the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Exactly, and those are just a few.
Yeah.
The concern is that if USAID funding is reduced or cut off entirely, it could have devastating consequences.
For people who are already struggling.
That's right. So that's the immediate impact. But there are also long-term implications, like how will this affect U.S. foreign policy in general? What about America's standing in the world?
Yeah, good point. What are people saying about that?
Well, there's a lot of talk about how a retreat from global leadership, in terms of aid, could create an opening for other countries to step in.
Like China.
Exactly. China's been expanding its influence all over, especially in developing countries, building infrastructure, forming economic partnerships. So if the U.S. steps back, China might step forward.
Makes sense. So it's not just about humanitarian aid then. It's about global power and competition with China. This whole USAID thing is connected to so much, it's hard to even keep track.
It really is. We've got humanitarian aid, foreign policy, America's place in the world, the whole rivalry with China.
It is a lot.
And as all of this keeps developing, I think it's really important to stay informed and to think about all sides of the issue.
Definitely. You've given us a lot to think about, for sure. We've covered the accusations, the shutdown, Rubio taking over, what the employees are saying, the potential global impact. But we haven't really discussed what might happen to USA in the future. What are people suggesting should happen next? Should it be reformed, defunded, or just shut down completely?
That's where it gets really interesting, because that's where you see just how divided people are on this. On one side, you've got those who think USAID is just fundamentally broken and either needs a complete overhaul or needs to be shut down entirely.
And who are the main people saying that?
Well, it's mostly those who agree with Musk and the current administration.
Okay.
They say it's full of waste and inefficiency. And they say the programs are often ineffective or even go against American interests.
Like funding for DEI initiatives, right?
Exactly. They see that as wasteful and a distraction from their main mission. And then on the other side, you have those who want to protect USA.
Okay.
They say it's vital for America's values and interests abroad. They think USAID is essential for dealing with global poverty, disease, instability. And they point to their successes over the years, like with HIV/AIDS prevention, disaster relief, democracy, and economic development programs.
A lot of the articles, especially from Al Jazeera, Salon, and the New York Times, they emphasize the humanitarian impact. What could happen if USAID was shut down, and how China might step in.
Yeah, that's a big argument for those who support USAID. They believe it does a lot of good in the world, and that reducing its capacity would be harmful, both to American interests and to the people who depend on their help.
So we've got these two very different visions for USA. One that says it needs to be drastically cut back or eliminated, and one that says it's crucial and needs to be protected.
Exactly. And that's really what this debate is all about. It goes beyond just the budget and the programs. It's about what role America should play in the world.
It's about values and how America uses its power and influence.
Ah.
Wow. We went from USAID 101 to, like, global politics.
It's all connected.
It really is. And this whole thing, it makes you think about what it means for America to be a global power and the effects our decisions have on people all over the world.
Definitely. And it brings us back to you, the listener. Why does this deep dive matter? What can you take away from all this information, all these different opinions?
That's the big question. What does this mean for someone trying to understand this whole complicated situation?
Well, one of the main things I hope people understand is that foreign aid, it's not just some abstract thing.
Right.
It affects real people's lives, millions of them. Whatever happens with USI, whether it's reformed, defunded, or dismantled, it'll have a real impact on the people who rely on its help.
So it's not just a political game.
No. And beyond that, the situation shows how domestic politics and foreign policy are connected. The fight over USAID is, in a way, a reflection of how divided America is.
You see that in the articles.
Mm.
The different views on USAID's mission, the accusations of a radical agenda, the debate over DEI, the concerns about China.
It all boils down to what kind of role America wants to have in the world, what its values are, how it uses its power and influence.
So even something like foreign aid is tied to bigger political and ideological ideas.
Absolutely. And this raises some important questions for all of us.
Okay, so what questions should we be thinking about as we try to understand USAID's future and, I guess, America's role in the world?
Well, first, I think we need to ask, what should America's role be in providing aid in the 21st century?
Right.
Should we be the world's main provider of aid, or should other countries take on more responsibility?
Especially with China becoming more powerful. Things are different now than they were in 1961 when USA was created.
For sure. The world has changed a lot. We have to really think about what America's role should be now.
And even if we agree that America should be involved in foreign aid, is there a way to reform USAID and make it more efficient and accountable without sacrificing its mission of helping people?
That's a tough one. No easy answers. But it's something we need to think about. And then there's the ethical side of things. Is it even right to use foreign aid to advance American interests? Does that create a conflict of interest?
That's a deep question. It makes you wonder about the reasons behind foreign aid in the first place. Is it really about helping others, or is it always about national interests?
Yeah. Tough questions. But I think we need to be asking them as we try to make sense of this whole situation.
So many layers to this. It feels like we've only just started to understand it.
That's the thing about these deep dives. It's not about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions.
I definitely have more questions now than I did when we started. But that's good, right?
It means you're thinking critically.
Yeah, it means we're engaged, ready to keep learning.
Exactly. And as this whole thing with USAID keeps developing, it'll be interesting to see how these questions are addressed.
Yeah, what decisions are made and what the long-term consequences will be. To everyone listening, stay curious, keep learning about this, and don't be afraid to ask those tough questions. USAID's future, and maybe even America's role in the world, is at stake here.